Now he's writing a book about his past. He is a photographer. He has done a bunch of from being in America to actually being in Canada. He's an individual that I look forward to interviewing. I heard his podcast that he was on before. Very love his energy. Love his energy. He comes off. He is a spitfire. And welcome, Brandon.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very, very much. I have listened to two of your podcasts as well, and I was very impressed. I loved your demeanor. I loved the focus. You're dealing with very strong men, strong machismo, macho, and it's kind of especially in the United States of America, whether you're black, brown, or white, we all have this culturally have been binded and concreted to this entity that we're supposed to be. So for that, I'm very grateful and honored to be a part of this with you this morning.
Well, thank you very much, man. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story. We're trying to figure out what it looks like a basketball jacket, but what team is that supposed to be?
So you have to kind of be an OG to wear this. This is a Minneapolis Lakers jacket. This is where they originated from. So you very rarely see this.
Okay. Nice, man. Yeah, I had no idea. I've always remembered them, the LA Lakers. I've been watching ball, or at least when back in the 90s.
Yeah, this was they made the transfer. I believe it was '68. We went from Minneapolis to Los Angeles. So it's been a while. That's why you don't really see it. That's why you got to be OG. You got to be okayed by the streets to wear it.
Sick, man. Sick. So, well, have you on? I want to actually just jump straight into it.
Let's do
Tell
it.
me, tell me a little bit about where you grew up.
So that's a very difficult question and where you wouldn't imagine it being. I always say LA because that's kind of where traditionally my friends, my culture, the way I perceived myself, as we just said, macho. I was a gangster, so I perceived myself in Los Angeles, although I grew up sometimes in 1 year in Sacramento, 1 year in Los Angeles, 1 year I'd be in Santa Barbara, 1 year I'd be in Valley Springs, which is a rural county, a rural town with like 600 population at the time when I first moved there, and I was the only brown kid there. There was not a black person there. That was it. I was the one brown person there. So my upbringing and where I'm from is not. I can't just say that. It's a story in itself, and a mixture in itself that I can't really put a finger on. And that's kind of what makes me unique as well. My culture and all the things, all the people I've touched, and the friends that I've had friends.
So, what is your background? What is your nationality or ethnicity, and what do you identify as yourself as?
So my entire life, I've identified as Mexican American. My family, my father's born here. I'm second generation, but Mexican primarily is what I used to kind of identify as. Over the last 2 years now, I've been culturally shifting. I've been educating myself on my ancestry. My ancestors are Mayan. I come from Mayan bloodline. I'm indigenous. Mexicans are 220 years old, where Mayan ancestry is over 8,000 years old. So I'm now understanding the divide they created in us in just that little simple word, Mexican itself. So I identify on paper in today for a job, for a resume, for this conversation, for people to understand who I am. Mexican, however, deep down inside, I realize I'm indigenous and where I come from.
I went down a rabbit hole back in 22, and my object was actually no 23. I apologize, to read 50 books in 50 weeks.
Wow.
And one of the books I came across was Why Nations Fail, and it was how the Spaniards raped and tortured the natives that were to that area, and stripped them of their gold and put a lot of violence into them to be able to force the compliance, and has actually created a huge generational curse between a multitude of generations.
Absolutely. And it's not just, I mean, and the crazy thing is, the reason I'm having this conversation right now, truthfully, is the fact that I stumbled along my culture. I was already educating. I was already doing history, uh, philanthropy. I was already getting into those topics, astrology. I was doing that. But once I got into my culture, of my blood, of my skin, of where I come from, my the great things my ancestors built, the calendars, the way they mapped this. I mean, my ancestors actually have entire cities where they were reflecting off of the stars in the sky. Literally cities mapped out as the sky. I mean, that's how incredible. So when I got into that, I was like, what is a Mexican? And that's when I came, you got to start somewhere, and to get to the root. That's kind of the exciting stuff, and that's where what in life everything takes. It's like we want to be something. Okay, I want to be a magazine photographer. I have a camera, I have flashes, and but you got to do the work. You know, it takes time, and that's the beauty in all of it. So from getting from point A of I'm a Mexican to holy crap, we got 8,000 years of history that coincides with Egypt, that is as great as Egypt, that is doing things that no other civilizations besides Egypt has done. It kind of blows your mind away a little bit. And for me, that was the start of like, I have to educate all of my Mexican brothers and sisters now. And that's kind of what created that Spitfire that you said earlier.
So I know you said before your parents separated when you were 5 years old. You lived in California. How was your upbringing? Because you were saying you would spend 1 year with your dad, 1 year with your mom, year with your dad. How was that jumping around from place to place and building relationships with people?
So when I lived with my father, I worked more than I went to school. I worked more than I hung out with friends. So when I was with my dad, it was a lot of work. And if it wasn't work, it was like basically I was grounded all the time. He was very abusive in the mental. He was very mentally abusive. Physical, it occurred when I would become defiant, and obviously, you as every human being, a dog, anything, you get to a point where you just can't take the shit no more, and then obviously physical abuse would take in. So that was my basically my upbringing at my father's house. When I went to my mom's, I had all the freedom in the world, where she was, out at bars, she was out with whoever she was with. She only had two boyfriends at the time. She was with them for very long, both. But those were the people she was with. It wasn't with me when I came. It wasn't that type of upbringing. So I had all of that bottled up with my dad, and then I would go to my mother's, and I would have all the freedom in the world. And I ended up drinking very early age. I would go and do a lot of home invasions. I was stealing car stereos. I was doing just very, very crazy things when I would go to my mom's, because I had just felt like I had so much. Well, number one, I had a lot of anger by being bounced back and forth. Although at the time I didn't realize that I was a child. I didn't understand we don't understand what our emotions are. In me, I had it worse. I was always called the problem child, even though it was, I was abused my entire life. Like, and then I was sent from one house to another house from one. And it was like, as a child, I really believed I was the problem. And I would say there was just no real balance or guidance or love either home, but one was more mental and the other one was more just freedom and basically a self-destructive abuse of behavior.
When I think about with guys and kids when they don't have like parents or role models, a lot of times what we will do is act out, and so we could be seen, even if it's negatively seen. At least we're being seen. And it sounded like your dad had a tight reins on you. One is because probably it was his upbringing to work, work, work. But then on two, he was probably trying to protect you from yourself. But however, it has had its negative consequences that happen too.
Well, my father had a really great childhood, so I've done, and I forgive my dad. Like everything that has done, even recently, the conversations we don't have is because of his own things that he has said, and that's fine. I'm not going to let it in my soul. I've done too much work to be held back, but I would have to disagree with the fact that he was trying to protect me. It was definitely control. It was definitely possessive. It was definitely, and he still has those control possessive behaviors. That's how I know. I can see it still today. But it was abuse. It was just the simple fact of not allowing me to do anything. Period. I mean, there's no other way around it. He was incredibly, incredibly, incredibly abusive in that way. I mean, I would have friends. I would try to have friends come over. And that was a rare occasion. It was always an excuse for him to go out. It was always an excuse, and it was just incredibly, it was like morally and soulfully he wanted to tear me down. I felt like it wasn't the fact of the physical. It was he mentally wanted me to be scared of him, and I was scared of him. My sister was scared of him. His wife was scared of him. So it was fear. He enjoyed that fear.
Well, I appreciate the clarity. I do. I really do. And it's not easy to always to talk about our parents in that type of light. And then also kind of could feel like I'll say how my dad was. It's the only time I was able to get his attention is when I acted out. So, and I also understood how my dad used to be very rigorous with my older brother as well, to be able to ground him, just to be able to make sure that he didn't get in any trouble. So that's what I was basing my perception off of.
Yeah, and that's and in a normal setting where a father and a son, you would imagine that, you would assume that, but I'll take it even further. So my stepmother was a big part of my abuse as well. My stepmother and him got involved when I was 5 years old. They met, and then as I turned six, that's when I started 1 year there, 1 year there. She was a big part of the abuse, and it went as far as not even teaching me Spanish. That was my father's first language. When her daughter was born, that was her daughter's first language. So they would even talk about me, all three of them, about me in the same room, knowing I couldn't speak the language because they intentionally didn't show it to me. So it was abuse, and that even that level of abuse. When I say these things.
Hmm. Yeah, because thinking about how one of my buddies was raised. So I'm originally from Long Island, New York, and my buddy Wellington, his first language, if I remember correctly, was Spanish. His parents were Ecuadorian. One of the awesome families, and they really instilled them to also learn English as well. But depriving a person of their culture and their ancestry definitely does them a disservice.
And it was in the light of intentionally laughing and saying things where I couldn't understand and be a part of the conversation, and that was the underlying intention of it.
Hmm. Well, thank you. So how was so you said home invasions? So did you ever get locked up as a kid?
17 years old was the first time I was locked up, and it was for assault with a deadly weapon.
Well, I'm glad that it sounds like you're on your way of changing it. What actually created the change from going from home invasions, assault with a deadly weapon to wanting to write and actually help people out?
So writing was a necessity. If I did not write when I was 13 years old, if I didn't have that outlet then, I probably wouldn't be on the planet. Writing was my friend, my savior. And then as we get down the line, we'll see that this is even a tool that we should all be using as adults. I was just blessed with the gift and never being shown, never being taught, never being. It occurred, and I ran with it. Now my history is very long. It didn't stop at one. I mean, I have many, 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 many chapters of criminal history of that. So what triggered and stopped it? What was the catalyst to saying, okay, there is more to life than this? Was number one, in 2013, I started questioning. I started saying, there's got to be a God. There has to be something more than this. That was the very first start of my education, was that question. And that was the rabbit hole that took me down. And what's interesting about that is history, anthropology, science, name it, are all intertwined in religion. So that's how I became educated myself on all these additional fields, is because they're all actually a part. They were originally, prior to the Christianity and different religions now, they all taught this. This was a part. This was religion. It was all intertwined. So as I got to the point at 29, it said, if you were to die today, I was in prison. I was on a bed reading, going in this circling, like, what am I missing? And when I said, if you die today, who would remember you? What would they remember about you? It was immediate. The first thing I actually did was I thought of my mother and my father. Literally, the first thought that came to my head and my heart was my mother and my father. As I'm sitting in prison, my mother and father come to my head and heart. And I said, okay, what does this mean? And so as I really start processing it, I just start realizing their pain. I wasn't even thinking about me. I thought, what did my mom go through as a child? This is what I went. This is what they put me as. Okay, let me put this shit aside. Okay, what did my mom go through? My mom was raised by a gang member as well. My mom's father would cook PCP in the house. My mom, I mean, he would kill animals. He went to prison for murder. I mean, he was that type of figure as well. So I said, okay, maybe my mom has a little bit of, maybe I could cut my mom a little slack. Maybe I could cut my mom a little slack. Maybe she went through some shit too. So that's how I started going on that path, and I started putting myself in her shoes. And obviously it went further and further and more details. But I started forgiving my mother. And then I did the same thing with my father. My father was a little more difficult because he had such a great life that it really, and his mother was such an incredible woman and mother, that it's disappointing to just, the whole thing is just disappointing. But to forgive, That's the important part, is to get to the point of forgiveness. And you have to say those things. If you're going to be realistic with yourself, number one, you have to ask those real questions. It is your mom, it is your dad, but at the end of the day, they're people. And these people are able to suffer, and these people are able to make others suffer. So what did my dad go through? Well, my dad's dad was a drunk. My dad's dad wasn't there for, I think, the first 10 or 12 years of his life. And he always talks about this. So that's something I always know that's in his head and his heart, that his dad was a horrible dad. And that's pretty much all I really have to go on that with my dad, because his dad ended up getting clean after he was about 13 or 14. For 40 years, he didn't drink. And so it was harder to forgive my dad. But at the end of the day, I said, I don't know why he did what he did, but I love myself and I have to let him go. Like, I forgive you. And I forgave him. And it was hard to, in the sense, let him go, because it was like we never really had a connection in the first place, you know? So for me to let him go, it was like, what am I even letting go of? And I felt like then there was really nothing to go back to at that point. So that was the difficult part for that. And I think that is where it also came in. Why am I doing this now? Why I'm doing this, because you said it earlier, I'm Spitfire. I'm literally one of the strongest, and I'm a runt. I'm a runt of the pack. I've been the smallest person. You'll see people 250 pounds and they look up to me. I'm that guy. I'm that energy. I'm the one that can do anything with confidence that anybody else would do, people would laugh about. So I said, well, what's the most gangster thing in life? Love. There's nothing more gangster in life than love. And when I realized that, I laughed. I was like, God's putting me on a real mission. I was like, this is becoming now a mission. And as it's developing more and more, my brain, I mean, things are revealing to me. It's not something that I'm sitting here and I'm writing and I'm just thinking of, I'm unfolding with time. I'm grateful for every opportunity. I'm grateful for every conversation. I'm grateful for every idea. And more importantly, I'm grateful for my awareness, because we require tools, you know, to get from point A. So it was that. It was all of those things coming together, clashing like two waves. And then the understanding that I am so unique in this world that maybe the journey I was put on was actually intentional. It was to uplift all the people that are kind of confused right now, and why we are all in this same rut side by side, but yet we're worlds apart. And it's like, we see no hope. And now I've never been more happier in my life. I've never been at a better stage in my life. And I have John Cohen. He's a producer of Angry Birds. He just liked my last podcast. I mean, that blew my mind. So I'm like, this is where I'm at now in life. I'm not shaking John Cohen's hand, but this is where I'm at now in life. And maybe not every person has the ability to get to the extent that I'm taking it. Obviously, I'm giving a lot of authority. People are giving me a lot of leeway. And I'm talking about the universe. The universe is carving out a really incredible path for me. And it's my obligation now. Truth be told, it's my obligation to kind of show people how I'm doing this every day, not just with words, but to show you, you have to do this step, this step, this step, this step. And that's day one. Now let's go day two. And I can do that. And I have the ability and I have the tools. And that's why I'm doing this now.
Well, it sounded like you have had quite a bit of an interest. You said you were 29 when you actually started getting into the religion. You got arrested when you were 17. There's a few things I wanted to ask you about prison, if it's actually been able to, if it taught you anything. And another thing is that I'm impressed that you were able to forgive your father. It takes people sometimes a lot longer to be able to figure that out. But before we get into John Cohen, like, did prison even teach you anything?
Will you repeat that last question?
I said, did prison even teach you anything?
No, I'll be very honest. Prison is not meant to teach you anything. There's actually, it is against the rules to have any type of educational literature in prison. You cannot have anything educational in prison. So in all reality and all possibilities and all opportunities, absolutely not. Prison is a black hole. And because I am the light that I am, because I'm so unique to the world, where I've 1 year with my mom, I've never been attached to anything. So it's given me the ability to also have that. That's like my secret weapon. I'm not attached. There's nothing that can, and at this point, there's nothing that can attach to me to stop what I'm doing, except death, maybe. And so no, what prison did was make me tired. It made me look at the same walls with my big ass imagination and realize and question, why am I here still? And when I did that, it did teach me everything. So I guess on the flip side, it unleashed all the questions that for when I got out, I needed the answers for. It did do that.
Well, that's a great way to look at it. The reason I was asking is one of the classes I'm taking right now and has something to deal with substance abuse and then the criminalization of it. And what it does, it actually deprives the people of the ability to really recover and stop being an individual that breaks the rules. That's why I was asking about that question. So after you forgave your dad, and you was it like just this big sigh of relief, or how did it also change up your emotional and mental bandwidth when you were able to come to terms with it?
So the way I like to think of this stuff is nothing, you're not going to ever get a thought and it's done. You know, when you start, I want to paint the tree across the street outside. Okay, that's the thought, but it takes work to paint it. So the thought was I forgave my dad, but the work was years and years and years in play. It's not something, I would be a liar if I said, yeah, I forgave him. It was the greatest feeling in the world. It was it was clarity. Immediate, I felt I knew what I was doing. It was like if it was like snow melt as you're coming off of a mountain. I knew I was going down because that's gravity. It's pulling me down. Where am I going to go this way around this tree? Am I going to go this way around this tree? That I didn't know, but I did know I was on the right path of forgiving him. I did know mentally I forgave him. Spiritually, it had to be worked on. Spiritually, that takes time, you know, and that comes with education. It's not something that you can just say, and it is. We have mental, physical, and our emotional selves. When we say something mentally, that triggers our emotional side. With that emotional side is where we dwell. That's how we change our underlying intentions. So today I could completely, if I was married today I could be completely, and I could say, I'm going to go cheat on my wife just because I don't care. But then there's something that occurs and it's a mental occurrence that would occur, and then it triggers your emotionally. Where why did I do that? I'm going to lose the greatest person in my life. That was the stupidest thing in the world. And then that's the emotional. So that's how it goes back and forth. It's not one dimensional. It's two dimensional. So what we are today could, if we dwell in it, be different tomorrow. But that's what it takes, and it takes time. And for everybody, it's different.
I like how you say that because in the DBT model, dialectical behavioral therapy, emotion shapes thought, thought shapes behavior, behavior shapes emotions, and it goes all different ways: behavior, thought, emotions. And you were just nailing a lot of what they talk about in the mental health field. Where the question I was thinking about was like, I know with myself, my old behaviors, my old patterns from where I've been. How do you help when you control your impulses nowadays, not to revert back to who you were while you were a teenager? What's some of the things that you do? I know you talked about emotions and thoughts and then dwelling in there. How do you actually, sometimes what we'll call is checking the facts, but how do you actually able to monitor like not being slipping back into the old way of thinking?
So that's an incredible question, and that's why we're here, right? So it starts with our character. Our character, it's culture, experiences, genetics, you know, and we have to, number one, understand who are we and what do we want to become. What we are today, we can be different 10 years from now, not tomorrow, but we can be different 10 years from now. We can be different tomorrow physically. I can wear a different jacket. I can say different words. I can watch your podcast and write down and memorize everything you've said and then have a conversation as if I know what I'm saying. I can't explain it, but, and then there's the emotional side of it all where no words are necessary. You understand. It's a gut feeling. That's your emotional intelligence. You get it. There's a car coming. You don't have to think, oh, it's a red light. You don't cross the street. It's a feeling. You don't have to think of the word. Then there's that. And then there's our genetic side. And this is really important, I think, for people when they are educating people to kind of touch this. This is important. How are you? Are you an aggressive? Are you aggressive in terms of your personality? Are you very? I'm very aggressive. So the reason I attack myself with this energy, I'm in my head attacking myself. I don't allow myself to get away with nothing. And so I'm aggressive. So for me, I have it a little bit easier, I think, than a lot of other personalities. But you do need to find the personality to make sure to find the tools that fit for that personality as well. Now, what did I do? I said I got out and I said, okay, I want to be a magazine photographer. That's what I said I wanted to do. Okay, excellent. I got a camera, I got a flash. Now, what does that mean? First thing I do, start reaching out to models. Hi, my name is Brandon Marshall. I'm new to the area. I'm working on getting published. I would love to be published. Do you have any ideas? And that's how it started. And I would send out 100, 200, I mean, literally hundreds, and every single day, 4, 5, 6 messages to 4, 5 different people. So what does that mean? That means I'm thinking about it, right? The action is after. I'm obsessed with the idea of being a magazine photographer. Obsessed. Now, there's bad obsessions and good obsessions. We have to be positively obsessed. We have to be positively focused, like flower. If you put a seed on something, the sun has to obsess on that seed in order for it to germinate, or it will not. That's the same thing with our thought on what we're looking to accomplish with a goal. We have to be the sun, and we have to focus. We have to obsess on it. You use whatever you word you want, but you have to have that emotion. It's emotional. What I'm talking right now is emotions. So obsess on what it is you want to be. And that's what I did. So I went to work. I had a full-time job. What did I do? I told everybody at work, I'm going to be a magazine photographer. Everybody would laugh at me. I was that full. I'm going to be a magazine photographer. Oh, look at the person that just said they'll work with me. Every day I went to work obsessed. I get out obsessed. I do the photo shoot. I obsess. I edit. That's all I did throughout my whole day. Positively was figure out. And then while you're doing that, obviously you have to become magazine. You have to have quality work. So as I'm obsessing, I'm also critiquing all of my work. So I'm not just saying I'm going to be this. I'm becoming this. I'm literally becoming this every day. 4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours. So like a pilot, to get a license, it takes roughly an average of 75 hours in order to get a license. So that's what, 4 times a week, 2 hours a day, 6 hours a week. It comes out to like 24 hours a month. So 24 hours a month, 3 months, 90 days, you get your license. What happens when you get your license, Will?
You feel relieved and you feel achieved.
Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I never let myself breathe. Now it's time to learn how to be a pilot, right? Now it's time to actually put in the work. So we did all that. And that was the first cycle. That was cycle 1. And that's cycle to obsess to become what you're thinking you want to become. And you get that license. Now it's time to start actually doing the work. So there's many facets to it in terms of growth. And the way I've learned it, I've worked out for 10 years straight. I physically worked out. I've now emotionally have worked out. And the same things with both. When you work out physically, it's 90-day cycles. Every 90 days, you show a physical growth. You actually get a growth spurt. Mental, emotional intelligence, same thing. After 90 days, you get emotional breakthroughs. You actually get to feel a moment. You actually get to feel an experience. And I'm talking from a man's point of view. Women have been much more blessed, where men have been basically emasculated. We've had our balls ripped off, and we're told that we can only be a man. We can only be angry. We can only be macho. And so when you start emotionally doing these things, you get to feel sad. You get to feel happy. You see my big old smile? People don't do that. They feel vulnerable. People feel weak because they're smiling. They feel like they're inviting something bad in. You know, that's fear. Fear is a killer. Fear is a dream killer. And so I think that at a point in time, you just have to really figure out character today, what I want to be 10 years from now, and your focus. How is it you're going to get there? And I believe, honestly, there are times where you can even fall into I had a identity crisis. So I think it's important for other people to do this with counseling. Don't do this by yourself. Make sure you have great support, because it sounds, people that aren't aware, this is a spiritual world. And what spirit means is it's a physical, emotional, and mental awareness. It's an alignment of all. And when you do that, you are today, that day I was a gang member. That day I was in prison. That day, that's all I was. But then I slowly, this is Brandon then, and then I slowly wanted to get here. But when you're going there, that's a lot of room that you can lose yourself in mentally. There's a lot of error where you can lose yourself if you're not careful, and it's very serious in that sense. So I think that's very important to always be aware of as well. Don't just do this stuff. It can seem kind of magical. It can be dangerous.
I like how you were talking about how you continuously grind. As soon as you actually got done with the 90 days, you're ready on for the next one. You're not stopping, you continuously moving forward. It's not many people have that ability anymore where they want that instant gratification. As soon as they achieved it, they want to have that little bit of a certificate put up on the wall and actually be able to say, okay, I did it, I'm done. Where to you, kudos. You bring up the you're a photographer and you're doing this for the magazines, which is amazing. I love, like I said, I love your energy, and I think it's a blessing. How do you help? And I know you talked about it before. Hey, I was a gang member back then. How are you purposely doing it today to be able to say, you know what, even though that was just my past, just to be able to continue to be like, you know what, you might see this, great. This is who I was. This is where I was. How do you help people see you in the light that you want them to see you?
So I've been very blessed that I came into the game aware. I've never told nobody ever knew any of these things about me until recently. Until my last podcast, that was the first time I came out. So it's just about that, my brother. Being who you want others to see you as. And I've been that every single day since I made my mind up that I'm going to be a magazine photographer. Um, and it's like, there's just no, for me, there's just no turning around at this point. There's just no possibility of going backwards. You know what I mean?
I feel you on that. And if you were actually have a conversation with young Brandon about when he was actually doing the things that he was doing, do you think that he even think it's possible to be this successful like you are right now?
Young Brandon believed he was going to be famous. Young Brandon believed that I was a great writer at 13 years old. I was incredibly talented and I knew it then. However, young Brandon didn't realize that there was education involved in self-education and self-awareness and self-healing and not drinking and not doing drugs and not doing all of those things. So yes and no. Yes and no.
What kind of conversation would you have with him to be able to instill that type of motivation and determination?
Stay in school, learn what they are showing you, and go to college. That's what I would have instilled. That's what I would have told me. I would have stay in school, learn everything they're teaching you, and then go to college. And to touch on the last point, I apologize. I kind of got off base. You said, how am I doing it for other people to see and how can I help them? So my focus is not to show anybody what my past was in terms of my art. My art, I want it to be universal. I want you to be white and enjoy my work. I want you to be black and enjoy my work. I don't want you to have to be a gang member. I don't want you to have to be somebody that was doing bad in order to appreciate what I'm doing. My work is on levels of appreciation for everybody. However, my story, the things that I've experienced, is the person that I am inside. When people hear that, that's the shift that I want. That's the direction. And that's when I want them to pay attention on what I'm doing and why they're supporting what I'm doing, is to give back to that community. But I don't feel that I have to paint the picture for me to do that. My picture to paint is much bigger. That's a small picture. That's a fraction. They want me to fall into that. They would love for Brandon Marshall to fall into that simple category of being a Mexican and in prison and broke down. They would love that. And that's my story, and my mission is much larger.
The reason I ask you these questions is not to try to pigeonhole you at all. This is
No.
for other people that are listening to be able to realize that even what your background was, whatever happened, how can you be able to, I don't want to say rewrite it, but have the ability and courage to be able to change that type of dialogue, internal and external, so other people can see it. So, for instance, being a photographer, it's not easy work. It's not easy at all, dude. I used to get yelled at all the time about how my big fat fucking fingers get in front of the camera lens. But in all seriousness, though, it's you're seeing things from an eye of multiple people. What would they like to, and helping people be able to move or show what they want or show you what they want and being able to articulate that. So I think it's impressive.
I appreciate that very much. And what I'm blessed with is so many people appreciate my perspective. And I always come with the story. So when you see any of my work, there's actually 7 to 10 other pictures behind that particular picture. And that's how I tell a story between 5 and 10 images. It could be like we did rent, we remade Raquel Welch in the Million BC, because that was one of her American icons. As a child, she grew up loving that person. That was like somebody she looked up to. And it was just to show all creeds and all colors that are coming into my magazine, how we all appreciate some of the same things throughout different people. And my work always tells a story. So that's why I think that it does resonate. That is because it's not just an image. I'm trying to convey a bigger message.
That's awesome, man. And the way that you were talking about, so it could be fluid across people of all different backgrounds, where they could be white, black, Spanish, Asian, they could be upper class, lower class, and trying to connect people to it. So, with the journey that you're on right now, what is the next part of it that you would like to aim for?
So my aim now, coming into this next year, I'm starting now a clothing brand, which is the final, I feel like, final piece to my puzzle on direction. Not puzzle as in I'm done with life, but puzzle in direction. Once I can have my photography, once I can have my clothing, once I have my books in order, um, that is all the messages in one. And then I am a moving campaign with all of my work. I have work in multiple facets. And that's another thing. Like, people are wanting me to get back in photography, and it's like I have to focus on my writing. I can only obsess on one thing at a time. Um, but that's the next point is this clothing brand, and it's about culture. It's called Brown Roots or Associated, and it is to do what I said earlier, which is educate my brown brothers and sisters on our history, on the fact we're not 220 years old. We're over 8,000 years old, and I want to awaken us with that. And by doing that, I also, you said it as well, that you did a cultural looking up. And I just want people to be more interested, because right now, by being black, by being brown, by being white, we're divided. We're just literally are in a division, because you can easily put gangsters on this. You can easily put white supremacy on this. You can easily just put things that aren't actually connected to you and ain't connected to me. And my goal now is to separate the awareness, the fact that we are no longer in a crayon box. We come from great things. Everybody, I don't care who you are. And it's time to come together on that format. You show me your great ancestors, I'll show you my great ancestors. And in this era, we can do it in this way today, but it's a way of living that we really need to simplify again. We've become so um, fast forward. Like, everything that we do in life is just like, don't stop, don't think, don't stop, don't think. And what's crazy is people think that we're sophisticated, like we're more so people think that this era in the United States is more sophisticated than my ancestors 5,000 years ago. And I definitely challenge that. The only thing we have here are cell phones. I mean, other than the cell phone and the computer, what is that person saying we're sophisticated or advanced? And now I'll take it even further. That cell phone or computer or camera was built by a specific person. 99% of us in this population can't do that. So it's like, I think that the era with this computer and with these movies, that we believe we're further than we actually are. We are still genetically, I can only be happy, I can only be mad, I can only be scared, I can only be in fear. I can only be in those things regardless of whatever technology you have. And because we are just being drowned out with anger and fear, we're disconnected, completely disconnected. And that is I think, where my clothing brand comes in, is to rekindle that understanding of we are much greater than we've been led to believe, and the cell phone has nothing to do with it.
So I agree with you about the cell phone and the computers, the social media. I was having this great conversation with one of my colleagues. He's uber bright. And he was talking about how with social media, even with addictions, it creates this toxic mimic. We believe that we're actually getting connected more than what we are. And what we're actually finding is that it's almost becoming very parasitic on us, where we're looking for this type of connection. So individuals that you were talking about 5,000 years ago, they were more culturally connected. And one of the areas that they were talking about was that tribes that have more than 125 people, they start losing the connection to the community, and then they start isolating, and how this creates a huge division. And one of the things that I realize, and even in this day and age, so many of us are trying to connect to other people, but we lost it. We lost that ability to connect. We lost that ability to be seen, and we go to this oversimplification of this person is a gangster, using your words. This person's a white supremacist. We're just trying to oversimplify it instead of actually getting to know the person for who they are instead of what they have done in the past.
Absolutely. And it's brilliant what the oppressors have done, right? They're brilliant in the way that they create fear. I mean, the biggest downfall of a human mind is fear, right? And then the next thing would be hate. Fear is the first because with fear, you are willing to do things that only people in hate really could do, like kill somebody. You can kill something out of fear. You're scared that you're going to die. You know what I mean? And I think that in order for us to, like in 2013, I quit watching TV. I quit going to bars. I quit socializing on those levels. So, in order to connect, we have to reconnect with ourselves first. That's what I've learned. We have to first connect with ourselves. We have to first be happy, be sad, be scared, be in fear. We have to experience all of those again and do it as it goes, as the day goes on. Not just when we allow ourselves to be, not just when we're with our woman, not when we're just with our son. We have to allow ourselves. That's connection. That is the connection. That is what it is to be alive. Whether you're a dog or you're a human being, that is what we have. And to connect to anything else, how can you connect if your prongs are broken? How do you connect to something when you have broken prongs?
Hmm. I agree with that. And I don't even want to say that they have to be broken. They can even be not sharpened. It's quite a bit of the people I work with that are dealing with mental health recovery. They were like, hey, I don't even know if I want to connect to people. One of the questions I've asked them is, do you even know how to anymore? Being social isolation, or they have created these type of patterns of thinking. Now, if I want to go and do something else, how am I going to connect to these people? How am I going to use the language? Even though we both speak in English, how we're going to be able to show that type of insight or get to know them or allow them to see us who we are. So
I would
go
even
ahead.
challenge that portion. Well, I would even say that we are at in so my father, your father, our parents are just parents. We can safely say chances are they've disconnected.
My father's passed, but yes, they're disconnected.
Correct? In the terms of emotionally and spiritually, the chances are people are disconnected, correct?
Correct.
So you have a disconnection conditioning an infant. So from day one, we're being conditioned on what they believe is works for them, on what they are not afraid of, on what fear, because it's fear. So whatever fear they have, that's what they gave you as tools to go through your life and believing that is the connection. And at some point later, you were disconnected. You were never connected. We are never connected. I know this because I'm reconnecting. I'm on vibes and I am empathic in ways I didn't even know existed. And that's why I know I was disconnected. So I would challenge that, Will.
So one of the things that I brought up here many times, and I guess I'll circle back to what you were talking about, your father. My father and my grandfather, my father was a Vietnam vet. I was an Iraq vet. My grandfather was a World War II vet. My great grandfather was a World War One vet. A lot of the times that we did, or how we were raised in different generations, was by obedience and compliance. And the quickest way to do it is creating fear. The If you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs on a macro level, a lot of us are in more security, and they're not even getting into the psychological where the work is. they're not getting anywhere near the self-esteem or self-actualization, which is the highest part. And I believe with our generation of where we're at, we're helping people start to break those different layers of the Maslow hierarchy of needs to be able to connect us a little bit deeper. But one of the areas that I've learned is that we're starting to lose a lot of purpose, and our parents were doing a lot of things based off of survival mode. And they didn't teach us because they didn't know how. So part of what I'm doing right now with my platform is helping people learn that it's okay to change. It's okay to go into the unknown. It's okay to actually be met with fear, but that's okay to be where you're at right now, but actually move forward. So that's why I was asking those questions. So I do agree with what you're saying about how our parents were. I just believe that my parents really didn't have the ability. And I met a lot of other people that didn't have the ability to teach.
Absolutely. And that's definitely a huge part of forgiveness, right? Understanding that portion. Definitely what the majority of it, and my dad just said stuff recent to me this year, so I'm almost 40, so that's why I say the things in the way I say it. I know he is what he is. But for the most people that don't have somebody, I mean, my dad's a rare occasion. For the most people, you do have to understand that they were conditioned in the same way you were. They are doing things out of their best knowledge from the experiences in their life. 100%. For me, and I try not to say it in a way where I feel like I'm coming at you. For me, I'm very aggressive and I have to have that energy. Everything that I've done this far, Will, is that aggression towards myself. No, you're not using that as an excuse. Yes, you did screw up. Yes, you did do that. Now you're not, and then you continue to have that accountability, but it has to be as if it's your dad doing it to you. It has to be as if it's your big brother or your big homie or somebody looking up to you. And I think that change as a human, we should start viewing as our blessing. Dogs, the majority of dogs, I've trained 35 dogs. Dogs can change. Dogs look forward to changing. As soon as you give a dog an ability, for one of the greatest examples of awareness and change is this. It was a French bulldog. He would shit on his bed. He would shit in the house. He would shit everywhere. He did not care. I potty trained the dog, and he was very difficult. One of the most difficult dogs I ever had. 2 years he had this behavior. Came in, did my training, and by the end of it, I trained him to poop in the grass in a specific area in the grass in the backyard. If there was a toy, if there was anything, he wouldn't even go near the poop at that point. So he became so aware that that was wrong that he didn't even go near it where his toilet was. And that is a dog. So we are blessed as human beings to pick up a book that Brandon Marshall wrote or pick up a book that Aristotle wrote. I mean, we are that blessed as human beings that I think it should be expected of us to change.
So I don't think that you're coming at me aggressive at all. It's just like we have different views of how we actually approach things.
Thank you. I was trying to say in a way because I'm very blessed to be here, and you know more than me. I'm just sharing what I've learned.
So no, and I don't ever take it offensive. We only know what we know.
Yes,
Like
sir.
I grew up in a very poverty mindset. I joined the Marine Corps. Everything was about go, 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 go. And then beating ourselves up and being very strict. One of the things I've learned over the years is what were some of the areas that I wish I understood or how was I able to? And quite a bit went back to somebody actually be able to explain it to me in a more malleable place. So so I don't take it as you being aggressive at all. And I also want to hear about your book. What actually helped you write your book, and what was the feedback that you wanted to receive after you finished?
So, dang, I haven't even thought about this one. So the book, it really, me and my wife, we had separated in 2022, basically 2023, we had separated. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, I got to ground myself because I was already I was at that point in a identity crisis. That's where I was at. I left this point and I was now in the middle of where I am with you today.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, my wife is not by my side, and as a man, I don't know about you, but me, my way, I would get out and I would get a girlfriend. You know, I would get somebody that had a house. That was like that was my thing. You know what I mean? And so I always relied on somebody. And this time I was like, this is it. This is the last time this is happening. This is the last time that you're gonna feel alone. And immediately I said, okay, I got rid of my vehicle and I started taking the bus. If you want to get patience, take a bus. So I did that for 2 years, one of many things. And it just hit me. It was like, it didn't even hit me. I literally wrote 50 poems in 60 days. I just couldn't stop writing. And then it turned into, I read it and I'm like, well, I need to publish this so other people can read it. And now the book that I'm at now is specific to my life, and it goes from jail, relationship, to the spiritual side that I'm on now, and many stories that literally are specific to my life, telling details of my life. And I'm showing you in a way of the gangster, of the abuser, the addict, to the person that stuck with it through all of these stories, because they're all positive in between it all too, stuck with it. And now the last story you read is the reason that you got the book, and now you're reading and waiting for my next book, because my next book is even more powerful. And the feedback I wanted from it, I haven't received feedback yet. I get my first check, my first royalty of January 31st, so I'll know then. But it was just to uplift. I was in prison. If you die today, who would remember you? What would they remember about you? That was a simple line to me, I feel. And everything I write is so specific to making you feel like I did in that sentence. Every page in my book is to make you feel, what do I do today to change what I'm doing now? And that's why I wrote it.
Well, I appreciate that. I worked at a prison for about no, about a month and a half, and I said, nope, I'm good. I went in
Where at?
there, Lyman, over in Colorado.
Okay, Colorado.
Yeah, it was a level 4 prison, and I was like, I don't know who's worse, the inmates or the correction officers. And
Right.
I was like, one inmate tried to call me out. I got out of the bubble. I said, hey, dude, we just had a regular conversation. He realized that I wasn't trying to be a dick and I wasn't trying to hide in the bubble. But it was just a very interesting place. And I remember one dude getting his GED. He was actually trying to achieve things like move forward or in a better way. And this guy was gigantic. He was probably about 6 foot. He was about 6'9", just some tall fucking dude. And I'm like, you should have saw how he felt that a random stranger was like, dude, great job, man, great job.
That's
Be-
incredible.
because you have people that are in these institutions that, and again, this is why I asked you, did you learn anything in there? Is because we have created these concrete walls to put people in. And are we actually really changing them, or are we just keep continuously punishing them through archaic ways of thinking? And a person with an addiction problem, it's a huge issue, but it's also a huge issue to them, their families, their people around them. Are we trying to help them heal? Like, are we getting a chance to understand the individual, why they got there? And are we also giving them the tools to get off of those streets? I live in Billings, Montana now. And one of the areas that I said that we can actually be able to redo is reinvest some of the money that we are doing in the homeless situation to help them integrate back into society with lower social economic jobs. We typically say, or I've heard this, and I'm guilty of this old way of thinking is, hmm, they did it to themselves. Most of these people, this is the hand that they were dealt based off of the parents of what they knew. Or we actually meet them with compassion for them to be able to grow and change. So I love the fact that you have had difficulty and from your addictions to being in prison to wanting to give back, trying to turn it into a passion and love. Dude, women, they hurt. They hurt a lot, especially when we don't know how to understand the emotions fully. That's something that, shit, I don't know many guys that are really good with that, of how to be able to appreciate the person when we have them, or be able to understand the loss fully without actually getting really frustrated.
And that is the point of finding self, of touching that center point, right? Is to be a part of a relationship. Because if you're having that problem with your wife or your girlfriend, your chances are you have the same problem with your mother, with your daughter, with your dog. You know what I mean? You're gonna have, it's not a problem soul. There's no problem there. The problem is in self, right?
Hmm.
And so the difference between us, and I love that you are out there and there's a energy out there doing what you're doing. My focus is not to help people. Obviously, I want to be a direction for those people, a beacon for those people. But I think there's just too much and not enough at the same time going on to make a dent there. My focus is more on educating the younger crowd, educating those people that have children. I want them to do the right things with their children. I want to not talk about how do we help somebody. Here's the truth. You can only help yourself. So how are we going to spend all this money and all these resources on all these people? And yes, I was one of them. But how do we do all that knowing 9 out of 10 people aren't actually wanting to help themselves? So my focus, and I love all of you people, all of those people, I love the community. I'm from the community, but we got to pull ourselves in this time more than ever. Really, we got to pull ourselves up. There's less and less. So how are we going to take more and more from children that are having also less and less? So I hate to say it like that, and I'm glad you're there doing the right thing, the correct thing, and your focus is on that for them. My focus is more for their children. I want to stop this repeated shit. I don't want to talk about it to have the conversation with their children. You see
Hmm.
what I'm saying? It's like, that's my focus, is education. I want them to say, you know what? This fool has a crazy mother, crazy father, forgave them. He's doing some righteous shit. That could be my son. I don't have that drive in me, but I have enough in me to be a good father. And that's all I'm trying to do. I want to create that. I don't want to help or wait for somebody. Are you sure you want to do it today? That's fine. I'm happy for you and I'll be there when you're ready. But I really want to shift our culture, because that's what children are. Children are the next culture. I don't want to keep living the same culture. I want to shift this culture now.
Well, hey, we're all different cogs in the wheel. It doesn't mean that
Yes.
one cog is right, one cog is wrong. It's just how we actually helping feed the beast in a healthy way.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I know we were coming up on about an hour. So
Yes.
what was the message that you wanted to be able to give to the people that are listening? Obviously, I want you to drop in what your book is named, but tell us what your message is one last time in a simple way.
I will thank you for allowing me one last time, because I feel like I didn't punch it today. So, very simple. Change requires time. Love requires everything positive. And what love is time, because we ourselves are time unfolding. We have a lifespan and we die. Patience, only through patience can we not run somebody over crossing the road, or not yell at them for taking too long. We can wait 10 seconds longer with patience. And with um, uh, um, love, time, patience, and kindness. Through all of that patience, we can always find a way to behave kindly. We can always say, I don't care that that person's homeless. I don't care. Just have empathy and sympathy for people. So have love, patience, and kindness, and just work on yourself to do that always. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen because you are aware your dad abused you your whole life and you just didn't understand it, or that you abused your son his whole life and you didn't understand it. So just always look for the awareness of how you can be a better human being, and you will be surprised on the journey that unfolds out of that. Just that alone, you would be surprised on the journey that unfolds.
Brandon, where could they be able to find you?
ARTBP13. You put that on any social media, and if you put ARTBP13.com, that is my website. And you'll find my work, my magazines, and all of my. I'm my epigrammatist as well. I have over 500 quotes for people on my Instagram also.
Out fucking standing, bud. I appreciate your time, Mr. Brandon.
Mr. Will, thank you very, very much, sir. I appreciate it. Anytime, anywhere you need. Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
What's your Instagram?
It's just Will Fruin. And
Yep. I
my
will look you
Facebook
up.
is Normalizing Men's Mental Health.
Normalizing men's mental health. I will read that, my brother, and I will send you a review. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. If there's anything from this moment forward, consider yourself my brother. If I can help you in any way, whether it's promoting or anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, sir.
How did you feel it went?